Anna and Brian's lives were intertwined long before they could even grasp the concept of fate or destiny. They were born into neighboring families in a quiet coastal town, a place where life moved at a slower, more predictable pace. The town itself was quaint, with narrow cobblestone streets that wound their way between modest homes and vast fields of sugarcane that stretched out toward the horizon. The air always carried the faint scent of the sea, mingled with the earthy aroma of the fields after a fresh rain. Anna grew up in a large, well-kept house on the hill, the kind of home that symbolized old money and social standing. Her parents were well known in the town, respected if not loved. They were the kind of people who valued appearances, where every family gathering was more of a social event than a moment of bonding. Despite their wealth and status, the household was often cold, filled with the echo of formalities but devoid of warmth. In contrast, Brian was born to a simple family who lived in a much humbler abode by the shore. His father was a fisherman, and his mother sold fish in the local market. Their home was always bustling with life, laughter, and the occasional arguments that families with too many mouths to feed often experience. Yet in the midst of their struggles, there was love. Real, palpable love that seeped into every corner of their home. It was a place where Brian never felt lonely, where even the smallest of achievements were celebrated, and the biggest failures were met with comforting words and gentle hands. Despite their vastly different upbringings, Anna and Brian found each other. As children, they would meet in the fields between their homes, where the sugarcane grew tall enough to hide them from the world. There, they built an unbreakable bond, one that neither social status nor distance could sever. The fields became their sanctuary, a place where they could escape the expectations of their families and just be themselves. It was a world all their own, filled with secret adventures, whispered dreams, and the kind of innocence that only childhood can offer. Anna was the kind of girl who lit up a room without even trying. Her long, wavy hair cascaded down her back in a waterfall of dark curls, and her eyes sparkled with a mixture of mischief and wonder. She was curious about everything, the world, the stars, and especially Brian. Though her family expected her to act with the grace and composure befitting someone of her station, when she was with Brian, all those expectations melted away. With him, she could laugh freely, run barefoot through the fields, and dream of a life unbound by the restrictions of society. Brian, on the other hand, was quiet and introspective. He was a boy of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. Where Anna was bold and expressive, Brian was calm and steady, like the sea his father sailed on. His eyes, dark and deep, always held a certain wisdom beyond his years. He wasn't the type to show his emotions easily, but Anna always knew how to read him. She could see the tenderness behind his quiet strength, the unspoken loyalty in his every glance. It was a loyalty born from years of friendship and shared experiences. From their earliest days, Anna and Brian were inseparable. They spent their days chasing each other through the sugarcane fields, their laughter echoing in the open air. When they grew tired, they would collapse on the soft ground, lying side by side as they stared up at the sky, imagining what lay beyond the horizon. Anna would talk for hours, weaving elaborate stories about knights, princesses, and faraway lands. Brian would listen, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips, his eyes never leaving her face. It was in those moments that something deeper began to form between them, though neither of them could name it at the time. Anna felt it in the way her heart would race whenever Brian smiled at her, or in the way she missed him whenever they were apart for too long. She couldn't quite explain the pull she felt toward him, but it was always there, constant, unwavering, like the tide. Brian, too, began to notice things about Anna that he hadn't before. The way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, or how she would absent-mindedly twirl a strand of her hair when she was deep in thought. He found himself drawn to her in ways he didn't fully understand. There was a warmth that spread through his chest whenever she was near, a quiet contentment that he couldn't find anywhere else. As they grew older, their friendship only deepened. The adventures of their childhood slowly gave way to more serious conversations about the future. Anna would talk about her dreams of traveling the world, of escaping the expectations of her family, and finding her own path. Brian, ever practical, would listen and offer his quiet support, though he wasn't sure how their different worlds would ever allow them to be more than what they were. By the time they reached their late teens, the dynamic between them had subtly shifted. They were still best friends, but there was an undeniable tension simmering beneath the surface. Something new, something neither of them knew how to handle. Anna, now more aware of her own emotions, began to realize that her feelings for Brian had grown into something far more complex than simple friendship. She found herself watching him more closely, her heart fluttering whenever their hands accidentally brushed, or when he would flash her that rare, lopsided grin. But she kept these feelings to herself, too afraid of what might happen if she revealed them. What if Brian didn't feel the same? What if, by confessing her love, she ruined the one relationship that meant more to her than anything else in the world? These thoughts plagued her, leaving her torn between the desire to tell him how she felt and the fear of losing him. For Brian, the shift was more gradual but no less profound. He didn't realize how much Anna meant to him until one day, when she told him about a boy from town who had asked her to a dance. The mention of another boy's interest in Anna sent a jolt of something unfamiliar, jealousy, through him. He couldn't explain it, but the idea of Anna being with someone else, of her laughter and smiles being directed at another boy, gnawed at him in ways that caught him off guard. Yet, like Anna, he kept these feelings buried deep inside. After all, Anna was Anna, his best friend, his confidant, the person who had always been there for him. To complicate their relationship with romantic feelings seemed reckless, dangerous even. So, they both carried on, pretending that everything was the same as it had always been, all the while knowing that something had changed forever. Despite their internal struggles, Anna and Brian's bond remained unbreakable. They continued to spend their days together, finding comfort in each other's presence. But there was always a sense of longing, a quiet yearning that hung in the air between them. It was in the way their conversations would trail off into silence, or the way their eyes would linger on each other for just a moment too long. Neither of them knew how to bridge the gap between friendship and something more, so they stayed where they were, caught in a limbo of unspoken feelings. The weight of their unspoken love grew heavier with each passing day. Anna's heart ached with the desire to tell Brian how she felt, but every time she gathered the courage to speak, fear would creep in, silencing her. She didn't want to lose him, and the thought of Brian rejecting her love was too painful to bear. Brian, too, struggled with his own feelings. He wasn't sure when his protectiveness over Anna had turned into something more possessive, or when the sight of her smile had started to make his chest tighten with longing. But he couldn't bring himself to act on these emotions. The fear of ruining the most important relationship in his life kept him from acknowledging what was right in front of him. And so, they continued on, their love growing stronger, yet remaining hidden beneath the surface, unspoken but ever-present. Neither of them knew how much longer they could keep up the charade, but for now, they were content to stay in the safety of their friendship, even as their hearts longed for more. Little did they know, the day was fast approaching when the truth would come crashing down around them, forcing them to confront the depth of their feelings once and for all. As Anna and Brian moved into their late teens, their once carefree friendship began to feel heavier with every passing day. What had once been simple, running through fields and talking about dreams, now carried a weight neither of them could put into words. They both knew something had shifted between them, but neither dared to address it. Instead, they danced around their growing feelings, caught in the familiar rhythm of their friendship, yet both yearning for something more. That Anna's heart was in constant turmoil. Every time she saw Brian, she felt a rush of emotions, excitement, longing, and most of all, fear. Fear that if she confessed what she truly felt, she might lose him forever. Their bond was precious to her, and she couldn't bear the thought of it breaking. So, she kept her feelings hidden, even as they grew stronger with each passing day. It wasn't that Brian didn't feel the same. In fact, he had been grappling with his own emotions for quite some time. The truth was, Brian had always cared deeply for Anna, but recently, those feelings had deepened into something he couldn't quite name. His affection for her had grown more intense, and the thought of her being with someone else sent a jolt of jealousy through him. Yet, much like Anna, he feared losing the one person who had always been his closest companion. One afternoon, as they sat by the old tree where they had spent so many of their childhood days, Anna felt the weight of her unspoken feelings pressing down on her. The golden sunlight filtered through the branches, casting a soft glow over everything. It was a peaceful moment, one that would have normally brought her comfort, but today, she couldn't shake the tension that had settled between them. "Brian," she began hesitantly, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost unsure. She was usually so confident when talking to him, but this time was different. Do you ever wonder if things between us might change someday?" Brian turned to look at her, his brow furrowing slightly as he considered her words. He could feel his heart start to race, but he wasn't sure why. There was something in her tone, something that made him feel like this wasn't just a casual question. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice steady, though his mind was anything but. Anna swallowed, her heart pounding in her chest. She had opened a door she wasn't sure she wanted to walk through, but now that it was open, she couldn't turn back. We've always been best friends, but sometimes I wonder if maybe things might be different between us. The air around them seemed to grow heavier as the meaning behind her words hung in the silence. Brian's heart thudded in his chest as he stared at her, trying to figure out what to say. He had felt it too, that shift in their relationship. But hearing Anna acknowledge it made everything feel so much more real. "I don't know," Brian finally said, his voice quieter than usual. He wasn't sure how to respond. A part of him wanted to reach out and take her hand, to tell her that he felt the same way, but the fear of losing her held him back. Anna nodded slowly, her gaze falling to the ground. She had hoped for something more in his response, but she could see the hesitation in his eyes. Maybe he didn't feel the same way after all. Maybe she had imagined the tension between them. The thought made her chest tighten, and she suddenly felt foolish for bringing it up. "I was just curious," she said quickly, trying to brush off the conversation. It's not a big deal, but it was a big deal, and they both knew it. For the next few days, the awkwardness between them lingered. They still spent time together, but there was an unspoken tension in the air. Their usual ease had been replaced with uncertainty, and both Anna and Brian struggled with how to move forward. Despite their best efforts to ignore the growing distance, fate had other plans. One evening, Anna's family hosted a lavish dinner party at their estate, inviting several prominent families from the town. Anna, dressed in an elegant gown that made her look even more stunning than usual, was expected to attend and socialize with the guests. As much as she hated these events, she couldn't refuse. Brian, of course, had not been invited. His family's lower status meant they weren't part of the same social circles as Anna's. It was an unspoken rule, one that had never bothered them before. But tonight it felt different. Tonight, Anna wished more than anything that Brian could be there with her, to help ease the awkwardness she always felt at these gatherings. As the evening wore on, Anna found herself in conversation with Michael, the son of one of the wealthier families in town. Michael was handsome, charming, and clearly interested in her. He made small talk, complimenting her dress and asking her about her interests. Though Anna smiled politely, her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't stop thinking about Brian, about their unfinished conversation, and about how she wished he were here instead of Michael. Still, Michael was persistent, and by the end of the evening, he had asked Anna if she would accompany him to a local dance the following weekend. Not wanting to seem rude, Anna agreed, though her heart wasn't in it. The entire time, she could only think of how much she wished it were Brian who had asked her instead. The next day, Anna told Brian about Michael's invitation as they walked along the shore. She tried to sound casual, but there was a nervous edge to her voice. Brian, for his part, felt a surge of jealousy rise within him the moment she mentioned Michael's name. He tried to keep his expression neutral, but he couldn't hide the tightening in his chest. "You're going with him?" Brian asked, his tone flat, though his heart raced with emotions he didn't fully understand. Anna shrugged, trying to downplay the situation. "It's just a dance. It's not a big deal." But it was a big deal. At least to Brian, it felt like one. The idea of Anna being with someone else, even if it was just for a night, made him feel uneasy in a way he hadn't expected. He didn't know why it bothered him so much, but the thought of her laughing and dancing with Michael made something inside him twist uncomfortably. "I guess that's nice," Brian said, though his voice lacked any real enthusiasm. Anna glanced at him, sensing the tension. For a moment, she considered telling him the truth, that she didn't really want to go with Michael, that she'd rather be with Brian. But something held her back. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was fear that he didn't feel the same way. Either way, she couldn't bring herself to say the words that as the days passed, Anna's mind became a whirlwind of confusion. On one hand, she had agreed to go to the dance with Michael, but on the other, her heart yearned for Brian. She found herself caught in a web of uncertainty, unsure of what to do or how to feel. The night of the dance arrived, and as Anna stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her dress, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Michael had arrived to pick her up, dressed in a sharp suit and carrying a bouquet of flowers. He was every bit the perfect gentleman, but as Anna smiled and thanked him, she couldn't help but wish it were Brian standing there instead. Throughout the evening, Anna tried her best to enjoy herself. Michael was kind, charming, and attentive, but no matter how hard she tried, her thoughts kept drifting back to Brian. She could still see his face when she had told him about the dance, the way his eyes had darkened just slightly. Was it jealousy she had seen, or was she simply projecting her own feelings onto him? As the night wore on, Anna grew more restless. The music, the laughter, the conversations, it all felt like background noise to the storm of emotions swirling inside her. She knew that she couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. She had to confront her feelings, not just for herself, but for Brian as well. The next morning, she made a decision. She would talk to Brian. No more dancing around the issue. No more pretending that things hadn't changed between them. Little did she know, Brian had reached the same conclusion. The morning sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a warm, golden light over the sleepy coastal town. Anna woke with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. Her heart raced as she thought about the conversation she had promised herself to have with Brian. She could no longer bear the weight of her unspoken feelings. It was time to face the truth, no matter what the outcome might be. As she dressed, her mind raced with thoughts of what she would say, how she would explain the way she had been feeling for so long. A part of her feared rejection, the possibility that Brian might not feel the same, but the other part, her heart, held on to hope. She had seen the way he looked at her, felt the tension in the air between them. There had to be something more, something they both had been too afraid to acknowledge. With every step she took toward the familiar spot by the old tree where they often met, her emotions twisted and turned within her, a storm of nervous excitement. She had rehearsed what she would say a dozen times in her head, but now, as she neared the tree, all of those carefully planned words seemed to vanish. How could she possibly put into words what had been building in her heart for so many years? When she arrived, Brian was already there, sitting on the ground with his back against the tree trunk. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, a distant look in his gaze as if he, too, was lost in thought. The sight of him, with his dark hair tousled slightly by the breeze and the familiar, calm expression on his face, sent a rush of affection through her. No matter how scared she was, she knew this was the right thing to do. She couldn't keep living in uncertainty, wondering if they were meant to be something more. "Brian," Anna called softly, her voice carrying on the breeze. Brian looked up, his eyes immediately softening when they landed on her. He smiled, but there was something guarded in his expression, something that hadn't been there before. He motioned for her to sit beside him, and she did, folding her legs beneath her as she settled in next to him. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched out between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with a weight of things left unsaid. Anna could feel her pulse quicken, the words she had been practicing catching in her throat. She knew she had to say something, anything, to break the tension, but the fear of what might come next held her back. Brian was the first to speak, his voice low and thoughtful. "I've been thinking about something lately." He turned to face her, his dark eyes meeting hers. "About us." Anna's heart skipped a beat. The air around them seemed to still, as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for what came next. "I've been thinking about us too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Brian ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit she had seen him do 1,000 times before. But this time it felt different. There was a tension in his movements, a vulnerability that made Anna's chest tighten. "We've been friends for a long time, Anna, and I don't want anything to change that, but lately I've been feeling like something has changed." Anna's breath caught in her throat. This was it. He was feeling it too. The realization sent a wave of relief and fear crashing over her all at once. "I know," she said softly, her eyes searching his for some kind of reassurance. "I've felt it too." For a moment, Brian seemed to hesitate, as if he was weighing his next words carefully. Then he exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. "I don't want to lose what we have, Anna. You mean too much to me. But I can't keep pretending that I don't feel something more than just friendship between us." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Anna's heart pounded in her chest, her emotions swirling in a mix of joy, fear, and longing. She had waited so long to hear those words, but now that they were out in the open, she wasn't sure what to do with them. "I don't want to lose you either, Brian," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "But I can't keep pretending either. I'll try to hide it, but I love you. I've loved you for a long time." The confession slipped from her lips before she could stop it, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. She held her breath, waiting for Brian's response, terrified of what he might say. Brian stared at her, his eyes wide with surprise. For a split second, Anna feared that she had said too much, that she had ruined everything. But then, slowly, Brian's expression softened, and a smile, small but genuine, began to tug at the corners of his mouth. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to hear you say that," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I love you too, Anna. I think I've always loved you." Anna's heart soared at his words, relief flooding through her. She felt as though a weight had been lifted from her chest, a burden she hadn't even realized she had been carrying for so long. She reached for his hand, and when their fingers intertwined, it felt as though everything had finally fallen into place. For a few blissful moments, they sat in silence, just holding each other's hands, letting the reality of their confession sink in. The tension that had once hung between them had dissolved, replaced by a sense of peace and contentment that neither of them had felt before. But even as they basked in the glow of their newfound love, there was an unspoken understanding between them. This was only the beginning. Loving each other was one thing, but their worlds were still miles apart. Anna came from a world of privilege and expectations, while Brian's life was rooted in simplicity and hard work. They both knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. "I'm scared," Anna admitted softly, her thumb brushing over Brian's hand. "I don't know how we're going to make this work." Brian squeezed her hand gently, his expression serious but determined. "We'll figure it out," he said, his voice steady. "We've always figured things out together, haven't we?" Anna nodded, though the doubt still lingered at the back of her mind. She had seen how her family looked at Brian, how they barely acknowledged his existence because of his lower status. They had always been polite to him, of course, but she knew that if they found out about her feelings for him, it wouldn't be that simple anymore. As if reading her thoughts, Brian's expression softened. "Whatever happens, Anna, we'll face it together. I'm not afraid of what people think, as long as I have you." His words sent a warm rush of emotion through her, and for a moment, the fear and doubt faded away, replaced by the certainty of his love. Brian had always been her rock, her constant, and now that they had finally confessed their feelings, she knew she could face whatever came next, as long as they were together. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, their conversation flowing easily as it always had, but now with the added sweetness of their shared love. Every glance, every touch felt more meaningful, more significant, as if they were seeing each other for the first time. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm, golden light over the fields as they laughed and reminisced about their childhood, their voices mingling with the gentle rustle of the wind in the trees. For the first time in a long time, Anna felt truly at peace. The weight of her unspoken love had been lifted, and in its place was a lightness, a joy that she hadn't realized she had been missing. As they sat there, side by side, with the sun setting behind them, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. But as the shadows lengthened and the sky turned a deep, dusky blue, Anna's thoughts inevitably turned to her family. What would they say? What would they do when they found out about her relationship with Brian? The doubt began to creep back in, threatening to overshadow the happiness she had felt just moments before. Sensing her unease, Brian turned to her, his expression gentle but serious. "What is it?" Anna hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice quiet. "My family, they won't understand." Brian nodded, his jaw tightening slightly. He knew what she meant. Her family was proud, traditional, and set in their ways. A relationship with someone like him, someone without wealth or status, wouldn't fit into their plans for her. But he wasn't willing to give up without a fight. "We'll find a way," he said firmly, his hand tightening around hers. "We'll make them understand." Anna wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to the hope that their love would be enough to overcome the obstacles in their path. But deep down, she knew that the battle was just beginning. The sun rose the next day with the same soft golden light, but for Anna, everything felt different. The confession of love that had once been a dream now weighed on her with a mixture of joy and anxiety. As she lay in bed, her thoughts circled endlessly. She had imagined what it would feel like to finally tell Brian she loved him, and now that she had, she couldn't deny the deep-seated fear that gnawed at her. Her family's expectations hung over her like an immovable shadow. Anna came from a world of luxury, privilege, and high social standing, a world where everything was mapped out, including who she was supposed to love and marry. It was a world where Brian, no matter how much she loved him, would never be accepted. They saw Brian as just a simple, hardworking man, a good friend, but never someone worthy of being a part of the family. That Anna's heart ached at the thought of having to choose between Brian and her family. She had never imagined that love could be so complicated, that it could bring so much joy and pain at the same time. Her mother's voice broke through her thoughts as she called from downstairs, signaling breakfast was ready. The house was already bustling with activity, the clatter of dishes and the murmur of voices filling the air. With a sigh, Anna pulled herself out of bed, knowing that today would be different. Today, she had to face her family and the weight of her decisions. As she descended the grand staircase of their sprawling estate, Anna felt a familiar unease settle in her chest. The ornate chandeliers, the plush carpets, and the perfectly manicured gardens outside, the trappings of wealth and status, seemed stifling now. It was a world she had once taken for granted, but now, every detail felt like a reminder of the chasm between her and Brian. At the breakfast table, her father sat at the head, reading the newspaper, his brow furrowed in concentration. Her mother, always impeccably dressed, sat across from him, sipping her tea with the elegance that had been ingrained in her since birth. Anna's younger sister, Sophia, was already seated, scrolling through her phone, oblivious to the tension that gripped Anna's heart. "Good morning, Anna," her mother greeted her with a smile. "You're up early today. Did you sleep well?" Anna forced a smile, trying to hide the turmoil that churned inside her. "Yes, I slept fine," she lied, taking a seat next to Sophia. Her father looked up from his newspaper, his sharp eyes scanning her face. "You seem distracted," he commented, his voice gruff but not unkind. "Is something on your mind?" Anna hesitated, her hands gripping the edge of the table. This was her chance to say something, to begin the conversation about Brian. But the words caught in her throat, and she found herself unable to speak. Before she could answer, her mother chimed in. "Oh, it's probably nothing, dear. Anna's just been busy with her studies and social engagements. Isn't that right, Anna?" Anna nodded, grateful for the distraction, but guilt gnawed at her. How could she sit here, pretending everything was fine, when her heart was so conflicted? How could she continue living this life of privilege, knowing that it was built on expectations she no longer believed in? As breakfast continued, Her parents discussed their upcoming social events, the people they would be hosting, the plans for their next charity gala. It was the same routine, the same conversations they had every morning, but today, it all felt hollow to Anna. After breakfast, Anna retreated to the garden, seeking solace among the blooming flowers and the gentle hum of nature. It was the one place in the estate where she felt truly at peace. The garden had always been her sanctuary, a place where she could escape the pressures of her life and think clearly. As she wandered among the rose bushes, her mind drifted back to Brian. She thought of his smile, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his dreams, the warmth of his hand in hers. She loved him more than she had ever loved anyone, but the reality of their situation weighed heavily on her. How could she ask him to be a part of a world that would never fully accept him? How could she risk alienating her family for a love that might not survive the scrutiny? Lost in thought, Anna didn't notice her mother approaching until she heard her voice behind her. "Anna, darling, you've been awfully quiet this morning. Is something bothering you?" Anna turned to face her mother, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it. She couldn't keep pretending, couldn't keep hiding her feelings. But the fear of her mother's reaction made her hesitate. "I've been thinking a lot lately," Anna began slowly, her voice trembling slightly, "about my future and about Brian." Her mother's expression faltered for a moment, a slight crease forming between her brows. "Brian? The young man who works on the estate?" "Yes," Anna replied, her voice steadying as she spoke. "He's been a part of my life for so long, and I love him, Mother. I've loved him for years." The silence that followed was deafening. Her mother stared at her, disbelief and shock flashing across her face. For a moment, Anna thought she might have misunderstood, that her mother would offer some kind of support or understanding. But when her mother finally spoke, her voice was laced with disapproval. "Anna, you can't be serious," her mother said, her tone sharp and incredulous. "Brian is a good man, but he's not. He's not someone you can have a future with. You're part of a family that has responsibilities, expectations. Your father and I have worked hard to provide you with the life you have, to ensure that you marry someone of equal standing. Brian he isn't part of that world." Anna's heart sank. She had known this conversation wouldn't be easy, but hearing her mother's words still hurt more than she had expected. "I don't care about that, Mother," Anna said, her voice firm. "I love him, and he loves me. Isn't that enough?" Her mother's eyes softened for a moment, but the disapproval in her voice remained. "Love is important, Anna, but it's not the only thing that matters. You have to think about your future, about what kind of life you want to have. Brian can't give you the things you deserve. You need to be practical." Anna felt a surge of frustration rise within her. How could her mother, someone who claimed to love her, dismiss her feelings so easily? How could she reduce her love for Brian to something as trivial as practicality? "I don't care about money or status," Anna shot back, her voice rising with emotion. "I just want to be with someone who loves me for who I am, not for what I have. Brian sees me, Mother. He knows me in a way that no one else does." Her mother sighed, her expression softening slightly. "I know you think you love him, Anna, but these kinds of feelings, they don't last. Love is wonderful, but it doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't secure your future. You're young, and you'll have other opportunities, other relationships that will be more appropriate." Anna's heart ached at her mother's words, but she refused to back down. "I'm not giving up on Brian," she said firmly. "I won't." Her mother's eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment, the tension between them was palpable. "You're making a mistake, Anna, and if you continue down this path, you'll regret it." With that, her mother turned and walked away, leaving Anna standing alone in the garden, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. She knew that the battle with her family was only just beginning, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But as she thought of Brian and the love they shared, she knew that she couldn't turn back now. The days following Anna's confrontation with her mother felt like walking through a fog, a haze of emotions that clouded her every thought. Though her heart burned with resolve, the conversations with her family had left deep scars, each word of disapproval replaying in her mind, slowly chipping away at her confidence. Anna tried to hold on to the love she had for Brian, but the weight of her family's judgment threatened to crush her spirit. She avoided her mother as much as possible, but the tension in the house was palpable. Every meal, every shared space, was filled with an uncomfortable silence that stretched like a taut string ready to snap. Her father hadn't mentioned anything, but Anna knew he was aware. Her mother would never keep such news from him. He was a man of few words, but when he did speak, his authority was final, and Anna feared what might happen when he finally voiced his thoughts on the matter. Brian, on the other hand, was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in Anna's world. She hadn't yet told him about her mother's reaction, nor about the growing pressure from her family. It wasn't because she didn't trust him. She did with all her heart. But Anna wanted to protect him from the pain she was experiencing. She knew that if Brian found out, he would blame himself. He would feel guilty for dragging her into a conflict she was never meant to face. So, Anna kept up the facade when they met, sharing stolen moments filled with love and joy, while the reality of her situation loomed ominously in the background. It was easier this way, she told herself. If she could just figure out how to handle her family, then she and Brian could have their happy ending without the complications of her world weighing them down. One crisp morning, Anna and Brian met at their usual spot, a quiet meadow at the edge of the estate. The air was cool, the sky a soft shade of blue, and the scent of wildflowers filled the air. For a brief moment, Anna allowed herself to forget everything but the man standing in front of her. Brian smiled as she approached, his eyes lighting up with warmth and affection. He reached out to take her hand, pulling her gently toward him. "I've missed you," he murmured, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "I always miss you when you're not around." Anna's heart swelled with emotion, but there was an undercurrent of sadness that she couldn't shake. She wanted to savor this moment, to let herself drown in his love. But the weight of her family's disapproval hung over her like a dark cloud. "I've missed you too," she whispered, leaning into his embrace. For a few minutes, they stood in silence, wrapped in each other's arms, the world around them fading into the background. But the peace was fleeting, and Anna knew she couldn't keep the truth from him much longer. She pulled away slightly, looking up into his eyes, her expression more serious than usual. "Brian, there's something I need to tell you." Concern flickered across his face as he studied her. "What is it?" he asked gently, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. Anna hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't want to hurt him, but she couldn't keep lying to him either. "I told my mother about us," she began slowly, watching his reaction carefully. "About how I feel, about how much I love you." For a moment, Brian's expression softened, and a small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "You told her?" he asked, his voice tinged with surprise. That's wonderful, Anna. I was hoping. She didn't take it well." Anna interrupted, her voice heavy with regret. "She doesn't approve of us, Brian. She doesn't think you're good enough for me. She thinks I'm making a mistake by being with you." The smile vanished from Brian's face, replaced by a look of pain and disappointment. He took a step back, his hand slipping from hers as he processed her words. "I see," he said quietly, his voice barely audible. Anna felt her chest tighten as she saw the hurt in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Brian," she said quickly, reaching for his hand again. "I didn't mean to upset you. It's just my family has these expectations, and they're stuck in this mindset of status and wealth. They don't see you the way I do. But it doesn't matter to me. I love you, and I'm not going to let them change that." Brian's jaw clenched as he looked away, his hands balled in a fist at his sides. "It's not your fault, Anna," he said after a moment, his voice laced with frustration. "I should have known this would happen. I should have known that your family would never accept me. I'm just a gardener. I don't belong in your world." "No," Anna protested, stepping closer to him. "That's not true, Brian. You belong with me. That's all that matters." Brian shook his head, his expression pained. "You don't understand, Anna. This isn't just about us. It's about the life we would have together. Your family would always be there, always looking down on me, always making you choose between them and me. I don't want that for you. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." Anna's heart broke as she listened to him, tears welling up in her eyes. "Brian, you're not asking me to choose. I already have. I choose you. I don't care about what my family thinks. I don't care about their money or their status. I just want to be with you." Brian's expression softened as he looked at her, but the doubt remained in his eyes. "But what about your future?" he asked quietly. "What about everything you've worked for? Everything your family has planned for you? Are you really willing to give all that up for me?" Anna took a deep breath, her voice steady as she spoke. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'm willing to give it all up for you, Brian. Because you're worth it. You've always been worth it." For a long moment, they stood in silence, the weight of their love and the obstacles they faced hanging between them. Anna could see the internal struggle in Brian's eyes, the battle between his love for her and the fear of what their relationship would cost them. Finally, Brian reached out, taking her hand in his once more. His grip was gentle but firm, and when he spoke, his voice was filled with emotion. "I love you, Anna. I've loved you for as long as I can remember. But I need you to understand something. Loving you, it's not enough for me to take you away from everything you've known. I don't want to be the reason you lose your family." Anna shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Brian, I don't care about that. I just want to be with you." "I know," Brian said softly, pulling her into his arms. "But you deserve so much more than what I can give you." Anna clung to him, her heart breaking at the thought of losing him. She didn't care about the future her family had planned for her. She didn't care about the expectations they had placed on her shoulders. All she cared about was the man holding her in his arms, the man who had captured her heart so completely. But deep down, Anna knew that Brian's fears were real. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, with sacrifices she hadn't yet imagined. And as much as she wanted to fight for their love, she couldn't deny the growing sense of dread that settled in her chest. For now, though, she held on to Brian, refusing to let go. She would fight for him, for their love, no matter what it took. Because in the end, he was worth every sacrifice. The days following Anna and Brian's emotional conversation in the meadow were filled with an uneasy stillness, as if the universe itself held its breath. Anna felt like she was walking on a tightrope, balancing her love for Brian and the mounting pressure from her family. She had promised herself, and Brian, that she would fight for their love, that nothing could come between them. But the reality of their situation weighed heavily on her heart. Each morning, she woke up with a sense of dread, knowing that her family's disapproval wasn't going away. They hadn't openly discussed a relationship with Brian since that day in the garden, but their silence spoke louder than words. Her mother's disappointed glances, her father's gruff indifference, and even Sophia's subtle avoidance. It was as if they were all waiting for her to come to her senses. They were waiting for her to end things with Brian and return to the path they had laid out for her. Anna couldn't blame them entirely. They had raised her in a world where everything was predetermined. Her education, her friends, her future husband. In their eyes, her love for Brian was a rebellion, a deviation from the life they had so carefully constructed for her. But to Anna, it was the first real decision she had ever made for herself. Her days became a series of half-hearted attempts to navigate both worlds. She would spend her mornings with her family, pretending that everything was fine, attending social events and charity luncheons as if she still cared about any of it. In the afternoons, she would sneak away to see Brian, seeking solace in his arms, even though the tension between them was growing. He was still worried, still hesitant about the future, and Anna could feel the distance creeping in, even in their most intimate moments. One afternoon, as they sat together under the shade of an old oak tree in the meadow, the quiet between them felt heavier than ever. The soft rustling of the leaves, the distant hum of the estate, and the warmth of the sun on their skin were all familiar, but the atmosphere between them had changed. Brian sat with his back against the tree, his arm draped loosely around Anna's shoulders. She leaned into him, trying to take comfort in his presence, but the silence was unbearable. She could feel the unspoken words hanging in the air, the tension building between them like a dam about to break. Finally, Brian spoke, his voice low and filled with uncertainty. "Anna, I've been thinking maybe we should take a step back." Anna's heart skipped a beat, and she pulled away slightly, turning to face him. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice tinged with fear. She searched his face for answers, but his expression was unreadable. Brian sighed, running a hand through his hair as he looked out at the horizon. I mean, maybe we should give this some time. Your family, your life, it's all so complicated, and I don't want to make things harder for you. I don't want to be the reason you're torn apart from the people you love. Anna shook her head, refusing to accept what he was saying. Brian, I told you, I don't care about their expectations. I don't care about the life they've planned for me. All I care about is you. I know you mean that, Brian said softly, turning to look at her with a mixture of love and sadness in his eyes. But I also know that family matters to you, Anna. I've seen how much they've given you, how much they mean to you, even if they don't understand what we have. They don't matter more than you, Anna whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Brian, please don't say this. We can make this work. I don't care about the consequences. Brian's gaze softened, and he reached out to cup her face gently in his hands. Anna, I love you. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. But love alone can't fix this. You're asking me to be part of a world that will never accept me. Your family will never see me as anything more than the gardener's son, and I don't want that life for you. I don't want you to have to choose between me and them. I've already made my choice, Anna said firmly, her tears threatening to spill over. I choose you, Brian. I will always choose you. But even as she said the words, Anna could feel the fear gnawing at her. Deep down, she knew that the choice wasn't as simple as she wanted it to be. Loving Brian was the easiest decision she had ever made, but staying with him, in the face of her family's disapproval and societal expectations, was infinitely more complicated. Brian pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head as he held her. I don't want you to lose everything because of me, he whispered. You deserve the world, Anna, and I don't know if I can give you that. Anna tightened her grip on him, burying her face in his chest. You are my world, she murmured. Nothing else matters. They stayed like that for what felt like hours, wrapped in each other's arms, both trying to hold on to the love they shared even as the world around them threatened to pull them apart. But the unspoken truth hung heavily between them. Love might not be enough to overcome the obstacles they faced. That evening, after their time together, Anna returned to the estate with a heavy heart. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the gardens, but the beauty of the scene did little to lift her spirits. As she entered the house, her mother was waiting for her in the drawing room, her expression calm but stern. Anna, we need to talk, her mother said, gesturing for her to sit. Anna hesitated for a moment before taking a seat across from her, bracing herself for what was to come. Her mother's eyes were piercing as she spoke. I've been patient, Anna. I've given you time to reconsider your relationship with Brian, but it's clear that you're not thinking rationally. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment, and I cannot stand by and watch you throw your life away. I'm not throwing my life away, Anna replied, her voice steady but filled with frustration. I'm in love with him. That's not something I can just turn off because it's inconvenient for you. Her mother's expression hardened. Love isn't enough, Anna. I've told you this before. You need to think about your future, about the kind of life you want to have. Do you really believe that Brian can give you the life you deserve? The security, the stability, the opportunities that we've worked so hard to provide for you. Anna felt her anger rise, but she forced herself to stay calm. What I deserve is to be happy, and Brian makes me happy. Why can't that be enough? Her mother leaned forward, her voice sharp. Because life isn't just about happiness, Anna. It's about responsibility, about making choices that will ensure your future. And Brian, he doesn't fit into that future. Anna clenched her fists in her lap, her heart pounding in her chest. I don't care about the future you've planned for me. I want a future with Brian, even if it's not the one you imagined. Her mother's eyes softened for a moment, and she sighed, her tone more gentle but still firm. You're young, Anna. You think love is all that matters now, but one day, you'll see that life is more complicated than that. I just want what's best for you. And I want what's best for me too, Anna said quietly, her voice filled with determination. And what's best for me is being with Brian. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of unspoken words. Anna's mother stared at her for a long moment, her face unreadable. Finally, she stood up, her posture rigid. I hope you'll come to your senses soon, Anna, because if you don't, you'll regret it. With that, Her mother turned and walked away, leaving Anna alone in the dimly lit room, her heart aching with the weight of the choices she had made. She had stood her ground, had fought for the man she loved, but the battle was far from over. As the darkness settled in, Anna knew that the road ahead would only become more difficult. Her family wasn't going to let her go without a fight, and Brian's doubts about their future continued to linger. But as she sat there, surrounded by the silence of her empty home, she made a silent vow to herself. She would fight for Brian, for their love, no matter what it took, even if it meant losing everything else. The tension in Anna's life had reached a boiling point. After her confrontation with her mother, the air around the estate grew thicker with unspoken words and judgmental glances. Anna tried to continue as normal, but every room she walked into, every family dinner she sat through, felt like a trial. Her family's disapproval loomed like a storm cloud, ever present, threatening to break at any moment. Despite her resolve to fight for her love for Brian, she couldn't deny the emotional toll it was taking on her. Brian, too, was growing more distant, though they still met in secret. Anna could sense his growing unease. He would hold her tightly, kiss her with the same tenderness, but his eyes betrayed a deeper struggle. He was beginning to doubt if love was enough to overcome the walls that Anna's world had built around them. One evening, after another strained conversation with her parents, Anna escaped to the garden, the place that once brought her peace and now felt like a battleground. She had told Brian to meet her by the old oak tree, the same place where they had shared so many moments of joy and sorrow. As she waited for him, she wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the cool breeze on her skin. Her mind raced with thoughts of their future, or the lack thereof. She knew she was fighting for their love, but she wasn't sure how long she could endure the growing rift with her family and Brian's own doubts. When Brian finally arrived, his face was etched with worry. He approached her slowly, as if unsure of how to begin. The usual warmth that accompanied their meetings was absent, replaced by a palpable tension that made Anna's heart ache. "Anna," Brian began, his voice soft but strained. "We need to talk." The knot in Anna's stomach tightened. She had been dreading these words for days, knowing they would eventually come. Still, hearing them out loud sent a wave of fear through her. "Brian, please don't say it," she whispered, stepping closer to him and taking his hands in hers. "Don't tell me this is the end. We've been through so much already. I can't lose you now." Brian squeezed her hands gently, but didn't look her in the eyes. His gaze was fixed on the ground, as though he couldn't bear to see the pain in her face. "I don't want to hurt you, Anna. I love you more than anything in this world, but I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep going like this." Anna felt her heart break at his words. She had always known that their love would be tested, but she had never expected that Brian, the man she loved with all her heart, would be the one to falter. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she fought to keep them at bay. "Brian, we can get through this. I know it's hard, but we've come so far. Please don't give up on us." Brian finally looked up at her, his eyes filled with sorrow. "Anna, your family, they'll never accept me. And I'm starting to wonder if I can accept that. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I don't want to be the reason you lose everything you've ever known. You deserve a life without having to choose between the people you love. You are my choice," Anna said, her voice breaking as the tears began to fall. "I don't care about the rest. All I want is you." Brian reached out and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks, his touch sending a familiar warmth through her despite the pain in her heart. "But at what cost, Anna? You're already losing your family because of me. I've seen how they look at you, how they treat you now. It's not fair to you." Anna shook her head, her grip tightening on his hands. "I don't care about fairness, Brian. I care about us. I care about what we have, and I'm willing to fight for it." Brian's expression softened, but his eyes remained filled with doubt. "I want to believe that we can make it work, Anna. I do. But every time I see you struggling with your family, every time I feel like I'm the reason you're in pain, it tears me apart. I'm not sure if I can keep doing this." Anna's tears flowed freely now, her chest tightening with the weight of his words. She had never felt so vulnerable, so afraid of losing him. "Brian, please don't do this," she begged, her voice trembling. "Don't let them win. We fought so hard to be together. Don't give up on me now." Brian took a deep breath, his hands dropping from hers as he stepped back. The distance between them felt like a chasm, one that Anna feared she might never be able to cross. "I'm not giving up on you, Anna," he said softly. "I'm just not sure if I'm the right person for you anymore." Anna's heart shattered at his words. She had never felt so helpless, so completely powerless to change the course of her own life. "You're everything to me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. "I don't want anyone else." Brian hesitated for a moment, as if considering her words, but the look in his eyes told her that his mind was already made up. "I love you, Anna," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "But I think it's time for us to take a break. Maybe we need to figure out who we are without each other, to see if we can still find a way back to this." Anna felt like the ground had been ripped out from under her. She had always feared that her family's disapproval would drive them apart, but she had never expected Brian to be the one to walk away. "A break?" she echoed, her voice hollow. "You're saying you want to break up?" Brian shook his head quickly, stepping forward again to close the gap between them. "No, not a breakup. Just time. Time to figure things out, to see if we can make this work without all the pressure." Anna wanted to scream, to tell him that time wasn't what they needed. She needed him, now more than ever. But the look in his eyes told her that no matter what she said, Brian had already made up his mind. "How long?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Brian admitted. "Just long enough for us to breathe, to see if we can come back to this stronger." Anna felt the weight of his words pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She didn't want time. She didn't want space. She wanted him, but she also knew that if she pushed him now, she might lose him forever. "Okay," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If that's what you need." Brian reached out and pulled her into a tight embrace, his arms wrapping around her, as if he didn't want to let go. For a moment, they stood there in silence, holding each other like they were both afraid of what would happen if they let go. Anna buried her face in his chest, breathing in his familiar scent and trying to memorize the feel of his arms around her, in case this was the last time. "I love you, Anna," Brian whispered into her hair. "No matter what happens, I'll always love you." Anna squeezed her eyes shut, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to overwhelm her. "I love you too," she whispered back, her voice breaking with emotion. "Always." As they finally pulled away from each other, the distance between them felt insurmountable. Anna watched as Brian turned and walked away, disappearing into the fading light of the evening. She stood there for a long time, her heart breaking into a million pieces, unsure of how to move forward. In that moment, she realized that love, no matter how powerful, wasn't always enough to conquer the challenges of the world. Sometimes it needed time, and sometimes it was the hardest thing to wait for. Anna stood alone in the garden, the weight of the decision heavy on her soul. Brian was gone for now, but she wasn't ready to give up on them, even if it meant waiting for what felt like forever. Anna sat by her bedroom window, gazing out into the world that seemed so indifferent to her heartache. Days had passed since her last conversation with Brian, but the ache in her chest only seemed to grow stronger. Every moment without him felt like an eternity, a slow, agonizing process of learning to live without a piece of her heart. The estate was quiet, as it often was, but now the silence felt heavier, like it was pressing down on her, making it hard to breathe. She had always known that their love would be tested. From the moment she had fallen for Brian, she had been aware of the obstacles in their path. But knowing that her family would disapprove, that society would frown upon their relationship, hadn't prepared her for the overwhelming emptiness she felt now that he was gone. The love she had fought so hard to protect had slipped through her fingers, and no matter how much she replayed their last conversation in her mind, she couldn't figure out how to fix it. The estate felt suffocating now. Every room reminded her of Brian, of the stolen moments they had shared, the secret glances, the late-night conversations where they had dreamed of a future together. Even the garden, once her sanctuary, now felt like a place of mourning, the memory of his last embrace haunting her every step. Her family, unaware of the depth of her sorrow, continued to press their expectations upon her. Her mother, in particular, had grown more insistent that Anna focus on her duties, on maintaining the family's reputation and preparing for a suitable match. Every time her mother spoke of potential suitors, Anna's heart sank a little deeper. The idea of being with anyone but Brian felt like a betrayal, not only of him, but of the love they had shared. Anna's father, though less vocal, had also begun to pressure her. His conversations with her were more pointed now, full of veiled suggestions about her future. He spoke of alliances, of strengthening the family's position, and of the importance of tradition. He never mentioned Brian directly, but the message was clear. Anna's relationship with him was unacceptable, and her future lay elsewhere. Despite the pressure from her family, Anna couldn't bring herself to let go of Brian. She still clung to the hope that their time apart was temporary, that eventually they would find their way back to each other. But with each passing day, that hope felt more fragile, like a delicate thread that could snap at any moment. Her days were filled with emptiness, and her nights were worse. She would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying memories of Brian over and over in her mind. The way he had smiled at her, the way his eyes had softened whenever he looked at her, the sound of his voice when he whispered her name. She missed him with an intensity that she hadn't known was possible, and the pain of his absence was almost unbearable. In her loneliness, Anna found herself drawn to the letters she and Brian had exchanged during the early days of their relationship. She had kept them all, hidden away in a small box in the back of her closet. Late at night, when the silence became too much to bear, she would pull out the letters and read them, her heart aching with each word. The letters were a reminder of the love they had shared, a love that had once seemed so strong, so unbreakable. In those letters, Brian had poured out his heart to her, telling her how much he loved her, how he couldn't imagine his life without her. And she had written back, promising him that no matter what happened, they would always find a way to be together. But now, as she read those letters, Anna couldn't help but wonder if they had been wrong. Had they been foolish to believe that love alone could overcome the obstacles in their path? Was Brian right to ask for time apart? Was she holding on to something that was already slipping away? One night, after reading through their letters for what felt like the 100th time, Anna made a decision. She couldn't continue living in limbo, waiting for something that might never happen. If Brian needed time to figure things out, then she would give him that. But she couldn't put her life on hold indefinitely. She needed to move forward, to find a way to live without him, even if the thought of it tore her apart. The next morning, Anna rose early and made her way to the stables. She hadn't ridden her horse in weeks, but today she needed the distraction. She saddled up and rode out into the countryside, the wind whipping through her hair as she urged her horse to go faster. The landscape blurred around her, but it didn't matter. She wasn't looking for beauty. She was looking for an escape, however brief, from the pain that had become her constant companion. As she rode, Anna thought about her future. She couldn't deny that her family's expectations weighed heavily on her. She knew that, eventually, they would push her toward a marriage that would secure the family's reputation and fortune. And while the thought of marrying someone she didn't love made her stomach churn, she couldn't see a way out. If Brian wasn't in her future, then what was? She rode for hours, letting the rhythm of the horse's movements soothe her troubled mind. By the time she returned to the estate, the sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the fields. As she dismounted and led her horse back to the stables, she felt a sense of exhaustion settle over her. Not just physical exhaustion, but emotional exhaustion as well. She was tired of fighting, tired of hoping, tired of feeling like her life was spiraling out of control. That evening, as she sat alone in her room, Anna made a decision. She would let go of the future she had dreamed of with Brian. It didn't mean she was giving up on love, but it meant that she was accepting the reality of her situation. If Brian came back to her, then they would find a way to be together. But if he didn't, she would find the strength to move forward. Without him, that it wasn't an easy decision, but it was the only one she could make. She couldn't keep living in a state of limbo, trapped between her love for Brian and the demands of her family. She needed to find peace, even if that peace meant accepting a future that looked very different from the one she had imagined. As Anna lay in bed that night, staring up at the ceiling, she felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. The pain was still there deep in her chest, but for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like she was drowning in it. She had made a choice, and that choice gave her a sense of control over her life that she hadn't felt in a long time. It wouldn't be easy, and she knew that the road ahead was still filled with uncertainty. But for now, she had taken the first step toward healing, toward finding a way to live without Brian. And as she drifted off to sleep, she allowed herself to hope that one day she might find happiness again, whether it was with Brian or without him. Days turned into weeks, and Anna found herself navigating the delicate balance between acceptance and heartache. Each morning, she woke to the same sun filtering through her curtains, yet each day felt like a small eternity, stretching endlessly before her. She immersed herself in her duties at the estate, trying to drown out the ache in her heart with work, family obligations, and the daily routines that filled her life. But no matter how hard she tried, thoughts of Brian would always intrude, lurking at the edges of her mind. Her family, noticing her withdrawn demeanor, assumed she was merely preoccupied with her responsibilities. They didn't realize that she was grappling with the kind of emotional turmoil that made simple tasks feel monumental. Her mother urged her to be more involved in social gatherings, suggesting that Anna might meet someone suitable to help her move on. The idea made Anna's stomach churn. How could she even consider dating anyone else when her heart still belonged to Brian? One afternoon, while tidying up the garden, her once beloved sanctuary, Anna came across the small box where she kept her letters from Brian. It was an unexpected reminder of the connection they had shared, one that had given her so much joy and warmth. With trembling hands, she picked up the box and opened it, feeling the weight of nostalgia wash over her. Each letter was a time capsule of their love, filled with words that had once made her feel invincible. As she read through the letters, tears streamed down her face. Each line brought back vivid memories. Their laughter, their dreams, their whispered promises under the stars. She remembered the way Brian had looked at her, the way he had made her feel seen and cherished. In those moments, the world outside her garden faded away, and it was just the two of them, lost in their own universe. But amidst the joy, she also felt a sharp pang of sorrow. It hurt to remember what they had lost. Despite her resolve to move on, the depth of her feelings for Brian became painfully evident. She was torn between wanting to hold on to those memories and needing to let go of the future she had envisioned with him. That evening, after spending hours reflecting on their past, Anna resolved to reclaim her life. It was time to shift her focus from what she had lost to what she could gain. She realized that while Brian would always hold a special place in her heart, she could still find happiness within herself. It wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to try. The following day, Anna decided to take action. She reached out to her friend, Lily, inviting her to visit the estate. Lily had always been a source of comfort and support, someone who understood Anna's struggles without judgment. As they sat on the porch, sipping tea and watching the sun dip below the horizon, Anna shared her feelings of loss and heartache. "Lily, I feel like I'm stuck in this endless loop of sadness," Anna confessed, her voice trembling. "Every time I try to move on, I'm pulled back into memories of Brian. I don't want to forget him, but I can't keep living in the past either." Lily listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "It's okay to grieve, Anna. You loved him, and that love is a part of who you are. But you can't let that define you. You're stronger than you realize. You can honor what you had with him while still moving forward with your life." Anna nodded, grateful for Lily's understanding. They spent the afternoon talking about everything and nothing, allowing Anna to share her fears and hopes for the future. By the time Lily left, Anna felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Maybe she could find a way to honor her love for Brian while still carving out her own path. Inspired by her conversation with Lily, Anna decided to take a class at the local art studio. She had always loved painting, but had set her passion aside as she focused on her family obligations. As she stepped into the studio for the first time, she felt a surge of excitement mixed with apprehension. The scent of paint and fresh canvases filled the air, and the walls were adorned with vibrant colors that immediately sparked her imagination. As the weeks progressed, Anna threw herself into her art. Painting became her refuge, a place where she could express her emotions without words. Each brushstroke allowed her to channel her feelings, transforming her heartache into something beautiful. The canvases began to fill with colors and shapes that reflected her journey, the pain of loss, the struggle for acceptance, and eventually, the glimmers of hope that began to emerge. Her fellow artists quickly noticed her talent and passion, encouraging her to explore deeper themes in her work. Anna began to experiment with mixed media, incorporating pieces of her old letters into her paintings. Each artwork became a visual representation of her healing process, capturing the complex emotions she had been grappling with since Brian's departure point one evening. During an art exhibition at the studio, Anna displayed her collection for the first time. As she stood amidst the vibrant colors and emotional landscapes, she felt a sense of pride swell within her. Each piece told a story, her story, and she was finally ready to share it with the world. Friends and fellow artists admired her work, showering her with compliments and encouragement. For the first time in a long while, Anna felt a sense of belonging and purpose. However, amidst the joy of her exhibition, she couldn't shake the feeling of longing for Brian. She knew he would have been proud of her accomplishments, and she wished he could have been there to witness her growth. The thought of him lingered in her mind, a bittersweet reminder of what could have been. That night, as she returned to her bedroom, Anna felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her. She picked up one of the letters from the box and read it again. Brian had written about the importance of following one's passion, of never losing sight of one's dreams. His words resonated deeply within her, a gentle reminder of the love that had once filled her heart. Tears filled her eyes as she realized that, despite the pain, she could carry Brian's spirit with her in everything she did. He had inspired her to be brave, to chase her dreams, and to embrace the beauty of life, even in the face of heartbreak. In the following weeks, Anna continued to thrive in her art, pouring her heart into each canvas. She found solace in the colors and textures, and for the first time in months, she began to feel a sense of peace. The pain of losing Brian was still there, but it had transformed into something softer, something she could carry with her instead of being weighed down by it. One fateful afternoon, while Anna was in her studio, she heard a soft knock on the door. She looked up, surprised to see Brian standing there, his face a mix of uncertainty and longing. Her heart raced as emotions flooded her. Joy, fear, confusion. "Anna," he said softly, stepping into the room. "Can we talk?" Anna's heart pounded in her chest as she nodded, unsure of what to expect. They moved to a quiet corner of the studio, and Anna felt a rush of memories flooding back. Their laughter, their dreams, the love that had once consumed them. But she also felt the strength she had gained during their time apart, the realization that she could be whole on her own. "I've missed you," Brian admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've thought about you every day since we last spoke." Anna's heart swelled at his words, but she also felt a wave of caution. "I've missed you too, Brian, but things have changed for me." Brian nodded, understanding evident in his eyes. "I know. I've watched you grow, and I'm so proud of you. I came to see your exhibition, and it took my breath away. You're so talented, Anna." "Thank you," she replied, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within her. "I needed that time to find myself, to heal, but I won't pretend it was easy. I've had to confront my feelings about us, about everything." Brian took a step closer, his gaze intense. "I've had time to think too. I was wrong to suggest we take a break. I didn't realize how much I needed you until you were gone. I was scared of what it would mean for both of us, but now I know that I want to fight for our love." Anna felt a rush of hope, but she also needed to be honest about the journey she had undertaken. "I've changed, Brian. I've learned to find strength within myself, to pursue my passions. I don't want to lose that part of me again." "I wouldn't want you to," Brian said earnestly. "You've inspired me to be better, to be stronger. I want to support you in every way I can. I love you, Anna, and I'm willing to fight for us together." Tears filled Anna's eyes as she took in his words. They stood there in silence, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. Finally, she found her voice. "I love you too, Brian. I've always loved you, but I need to know that we can face the challenges ahead together." Brian reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "We can do this, Anna. I believe in us. I'm willing to stand by your side, to fight for our love no matter what obstacles come our way." In that moment, everything felt right again. The pain of the past began to melt away as they stood there, united in their shared determination to rebuild their love. Anna realized that while the road ahead would not be easy, they were finally ready to face it together. As they embraced, Anna felt a warmth spread through her heart, the kind of warmth that had been absent for far too long. In Brian's arms, she felt safe, cherished, and loved. They had both grown in their time apart, and now they were ready to embrace the future together. In the following weeks, Anna and Brian worked to rekindle their relationship, taking the time to communicate openly about their hopes, fears, and dreams. They made a pact to support one another in their individual journeys while nurturing their love. Brian encouraged Anna's artistic pursuits, attending her exhibitions and celebrating her successes with genuine pride. In turn, Anna stood by Brian as he pursued his career aspirations, offering unwavering support and encouragement. Together, they created a beautiful harmony, blending their lives while respecting each other's individuality. As they navigated the challenges of their families and societal expectations, they found strength in their love, overcoming obstacles that once felt insurmountable. Their journey was not without difficulties. Anna's family continued to express their concerns, urging her to focus on more appropriate matches. But Anna stood firm in her commitment to Brian, refusing to let anyone dictate her heart. She learned to assert herself, to advocate for her happiness, and in doing so, she inspired her family to see the strength of her love. As the seasons changed, so did their relationship. The once fragile bond they had struggled to rebuild blossomed into something beautiful and resilient. They created new memories, filling their days with laughter, adventure, and the simple joy of being together. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the world, Brian took Anna to their favorite spot, a serene overlook that had witnessed their shared dreams and whispered secrets. The view was breathtaking, but Anna's heart raced at the sight of the small, velvet box Brian held in his hand. "Anna," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've shown me what it means to truly love and be loved. You've taught me that love isn't just about holding on. It's about growing together, supporting each other through thick and thin. I can't imagine my life without you by my side." As he opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, Anna's breath caught in her throat. Her heart raced as she looked into Brian's eyes, the depth of his love shining through. "Will you marry me, Anna? Will you make me the happiest man in the world?" Tears filled Anna's eyes as she nodded, overwhelmed with joy. "Yes, 1,000 times yes," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around him. As they embraced, the world around them faded away, leaving only the two of them in their shared moment of love and commitment. They stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, feeling the warmth of their love enveloping them like a cozy blanket. In that moment, they knew they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, side by side. The journey had not been easy, but through the depths of heartache, they had found a love that was stronger, deeper, and more profound than they could have ever imagined. Together, they would build a future filled with love, creativity, and endless possibilities, a testament to the power of healing and the resilience of the human heart. And as they stood on that overlook, under the vast expanse of the sky, Anna felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had learned to embrace her pain, to grow from it, and to transform it into something beautiful. And in Brian, she had found a partner who would stand by her side, no matter what challenges life presented. In that perfect moment, she realized that love was worth fighting for, that it could transcend even the deepest heartache. Together, they would write the next chapter of their lives, hand in hand, heart to heart. As the days turned into weeks after their heartfelt engagement, Anna and Brian reveled in the promise of a future together. The air around them felt electric with excitement, and their love blossomed in ways they had never imagined. With each passing moment, they became more intertwined, sharing their dreams, ambitions, and the mundane details of daily life that solidified their bond. They began planning their wedding, a celebration that would symbolize not only their love, but also their journey. Each decision brought them closer together, allowing them to blend their visions into something uniquely theirs. They wanted their special day to reflect their love story, filled with personal touches that would make it memorable. One sunny afternoon, they visited a local venue known for its breathtaking gardens and picturesque settings. As they walked hand in hand, Anna couldn't help but feel a sense of magic in the air. The venue, with its blooming flowers and serene ambience, felt like the perfect backdrop for their love story. They wandered through the lush greenery, sharing ideas about themes, colors, and arrangements, laughter echoing around them as they playfully debated their preferences. "I can't believe we're actually doing this," Anna said, her voice filled with excitement. "It feels surreal." Brian turned to her, his eyes sparkling with affection. "I know. It's like a dream come true. I never thought I'd be planning a wedding with the love of my life. It's all so perfect." They spent the entire afternoon exploring the venue, envisioning how each area would look on their wedding day. They imagined guests mingling among the flowers, the sun setting in the background as they exchanged vows surrounded by loved ones. Each idea they shared brought them closer, intertwining their hopes and dreams. As they made their way back home, Anna's mind raced with possibilities. She thought about the dresses she had seen online, the colors that would complement the venue's natural beauty, and the music that would play as they danced together for the first time as a married couple. With every idea, her heart swelled with joy. However, amidst the excitement, there was a lingering thought: her family's apprehensions about their relationship. Although her parents had come to accept Brian, she could sense their lingering doubts, especially regarding the timing of their engagement. They were concerned about Anna's youth and wanted her to ensure she was making the right choice. Anna knew they loved her and only wanted what was best, but she was determined to forge her own path. One evening, after a busy day of wedding planning, Anna found herself sitting in her room, lost in thought. She knew she needed to address her family's concerns head-on. She wanted to reassure them of her commitment to Brian and her belief in their love. "Brian," she said, her voice steady, "we need to talk to my parents. I want to invite them over for dinner to discuss our plans. I think it's important to involve them in this process." Brian nodded, his expression serious. "I understand. I want them to see how serious we are about each other, too. It's important for them to know that this is what we both want." They set a date for the dinner, and Anna spent the days leading up to it with a mix of excitement and anxiety. She prepared her heart for the conversation, knowing it wouldn't be easy. On the day of the dinner, she busied herself in the kitchen, determined to make a meal that would impress her parents. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow in the dining room, Anna set the table, her heart racing. She had decided on a simple yet elegant dinner, complete with her mother's favorite dish and a dessert that had been a family staple for years. She wanted to create an atmosphere of love and warmth, hoping it would ease her parents' worries. When her parents arrived, Anna welcomed them with a bright smile, her heart fluttering with anticipation. They exchanged pleasantries, and as they settled at the table, she sensed the tension in the air. Her mother's smile was warm, but her father's expression was serious, his protective instincts kicking in. "Thank you for inviting us, Anna," her father said, his tone cautious. "We've been meaning to talk about your plans." After they finished their meal, Anna took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Mom, Dad, Brian, and I wanted to share something important with you. We're engaged, and we're planning a wedding." Her mother's eyes widened in surprise, and her father leaned forward, concern etched on his face. "Engaged? That's wonderful. But have you thought this through? You're both so young." Anna nodded, feeling the heat of her father's gaze. "I understand your concerns, but I've never been more certain about anything in my life. Brian makes me happy, and we complement each other perfectly. I want you to trust my judgment." Brian reached for Anna's hand, squeezing it gently in support. Mr. and Mrs. Gomez, I love Anna deeply. I promise to take care of her and support her dreams. We're both committed to building a life together, and we hope you can see that. Anna's mother looked between them, her expression softening. I just want you to be sure, Anna. I know how much you love him, but marriage is a big step. I know, Mom, Anna replied, her voice steady. But I truly believe this is the right path for us. We've both grown so much over the past few months, and I want you to be a part of this journey with us. The room fell silent as her parents exchanged glances, the tension palpable. Finally, her father spoke, his tone gentler now. As long as you're happy and feel ready, we'll support you. We just want what's best for you. Relief washed over Anna as she smiled at her parents. Thank you, Dad. I promise I'll always keep you in the loop. This is just as much about our family as it is about Brian and me. With the conversation turning to wedding plans, Anna felt a renewed sense of hope. Her parents began to warm to the idea, sharing their experiences and offering advice. They talked about traditions, the importance of family, and the love that should anchor every marriage. As the evening progressed, laughter replaced tension, and the conversation flowed freely. Anna's heart swelled with gratitude as she realized they were moving toward a place of acceptance. After her parents left, Anna turned to Brian, her eyes shining with happiness. I think that went really well. I was so nervous, but they understood. Brian pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm so proud of you, Anna. You stood your ground and showed them how strong our love is. Over the next few weeks, the couple continued to plan their wedding together, navigating the joys and challenges of bringing their vision to life. They met with vendors, finalized guest lists, and even began designing their invitations. Each step brought them closer together, solidifying their commitment to one another. Amidst the preparations, Anna also found herself reflecting on her journey of self-discovery. She felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that she had grown stronger and more independent. Her art continued to flourish, with each piece reflecting her evolving emotions. She found inspiration in her relationship with Brian, channeling their love into vibrant colors and bold strokes on the canvas. One day, while painting in her studio, Anna decided to create a piece that represented their love story. She envisioned a breathtaking landscape with two figures, one representing her and the other Brian, standing together, surrounded by the beauty of nature. As she painted, she poured her heart into each brushstroke, capturing the essence of their journey. When she unveiled the painting to Brian later that week, his eyes widened in awe. "This is incredible, Anna! You've captured everything we are together." Anna beamed with pride, knowing that her art was a reflection of their love. "I wanted to create something that represented us, our struggles, our growth, and the beauty of our journey together." Brian wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "You have such a gift. I can't wait for the world to see this." As the wedding date approached, Anna and Brian felt the excitement building. They spent countless evenings discussing their vows, dreaming about their future, and imagining the life they would build together. Their love grew stronger with each passing day, and they were determined to create a marriage rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and support. Finally, the day of their wedding arrived, and Anna awoke with a mix of anticipation and nerves. The sun poured through her window, illuminating her room in a warm glow. She took a deep breath, her heart racing with excitement as she thought about the day ahead. Surrounded by her closest friends and family, Anna prepared for the ceremony, each moment filled with laughter and joy. As she slipped into her wedding dress, she couldn't help but feel a wave of emotion wash over her. This was it, the day she would commit herself to the love of her life. Meanwhile, Brian was getting ready at a nearby venue, surrounded by his best friends. They shared jokes and stories, reminiscing about the moments that had brought them to this point. Brian's heart swelled with anticipation as he thought about Anna, the woman who had captured his heart and inspired him to be a better man. When the ceremony began, Anna's heart raced as she walked down the aisle, the world around her fading away. All she could see was Brian, standing at the altar, his eyes filled with love and admiration. As she approached him, Tears of joy filled her eyes. This was the moment they had both dreamed of. When their hands met, a surge of warmth enveloped them. They exchanged vows that spoke to their hearts, promises of love, loyalty, and partnership. The words they shared resonated with everyone present, a testament to the strength of their bond. As they shared their first kiss as a married couple, the crowd erupted in applause, and Anna felt a sense of euphoria wash over her. They had made it through the trials and tribulations of their relationship, and now they stood united as partners in life. The celebration that followed was filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt toasts. Friends and family gathered to honor the couple, sharing stories that highlighted the love they had cultivated. Anna and Brian danced the night away, lost in each other's eyes, knowing they had created something beautiful together. As the evening drew to a close, they found a quiet moment outside, under the stars. The night sky shimmered above them, and Anna felt a sense of peace settle in her heart. "I can't believe we're finally married," she whispered, leaning her head against Brian's shoulder. "Me neither," Brian replied, wrapping his arms around her. "It's a dream come true, and I couldn't imagine sharing this life with anyone else." In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the night, Anna realized that they had indeed created a love story worth telling. A story of resilience, growth, and the unwavering belief that love could conquer all. Together, they were ready to face whatever the future held, hand in hand, heart to heart, writing the next chapter of their lives together. As the honeymoon phase of their marriage settled into daily life, Anna and Brian found themselves immersed in the beautiful, yet challenging reality of being partners. They returned from their dreamy getaway, filled with memories of sun-soaked beaches, laughter, and the sweet promises they had whispered to each other under the stars. Now, back in their home, they were determined to build a life together that embodied their dreams and aspirations. Their first few weeks as a married couple were a whirlwind of new experiences. They both resumed their careers, Anna with her art and Brian with his work in business development, finding joy in sharing the details of their days with each other. They made it a ritual to sit down every evening with dinner, recounting the highlights and lowlights, giving each other the space to express their thoughts and feelings. One evening, as they sat at the dining table enjoying a meal that Anna had lovingly prepared, she noticed a thoughtful expression on Brian's face. She put down her fork, concern washing over her. "What's on your mind, love?" Brian looked up, a hint of hesitation in his eyes. "I've been thinking about our future, you know? We've just started this journey, and I want to make sure we're aligned on what we want." Anna smiled, sensing the importance of the conversation. "Of course, I've been thinking about it too. What do you have in mind?" "I know we both want to grow in our careers, but I also want us to consider our long-term goals. Do we want to buy a house someday? Start a family?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Anna's heart fluttered at the thought of their future. "Yes, I dream of having a cozy home filled with laughter and love. I want us to have the space to create memories, to have a family one day. But I also want us to travel and experience the world together." Brian nodded, his expression growing serious. "I want that too. I think we should make a plan. We're both ambitious, and I don't want to lose sight of our individual goals while we build our life together." "Absolutely," Anna agreed, feeling a surge of gratitude for Brian's foresight. "I think it's important that we support each other's ambitions while also prioritizing our relationship. It's all about balance." From that evening forward, they began to outline their dreams. Some as simple as weekend getaways to explore nearby towns, and others more ambitious, like saving for a future home. They discussed their values, their hopes, and even their fears, nurturing an open dialogue that deepened their connection. As the weeks turned into months, Anna threw herself into her art. She began to showcase her work in local galleries, attending exhibitions, and networking with other artists. Brian was her biggest cheerleader, attending each opening, proud of the talent and dedication she poured into her craft. However, balancing work and art was not without its challenges. Some days, Anna found herself feeling overwhelmed by self-doubt, wondering if she was truly capable of making a name for herself in the art world. On such days, Brian would notice the subtle changes in her demeanor, the way her eyes dimmed, the way her smile faltered. One rainy afternoon, as Anna stared blankly at a canvas, her frustration boiled over. "I just don't think I have what it takes, Brian. Maybe I should focus on something more stable. Art feels so unpredictable." Brian set aside his own work and sat beside her, gently taking her hand in his. "Anna, listen to me. You have an incredible gift. I've seen how your art transforms when you're passionate about it. Remember why you started? Your art is an expression of who you are." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, reminding her of the joy that had first ignited her love for painting. "I know, but what if no one sees my work? What if I fail?" she confessed, tears brimming in her eyes. "Failure is part of the journey," he replied softly. "But I believe in you. You have something special to offer the world. Don't let fear hold you back. We can tackle this together." His unwavering support reignited a spark within her. With renewed determination, Anna poured herself back into her art, creating pieces that captured the essence of their love and the beauty of their life together. She began to showcase her work more boldly, submitting pieces to competitions and gaining recognition in her local community. Meanwhile, Brian excelled in his career, earning promotions and taking on challenging projects. He was driven, passionate about his work, and always returned home excited to share his successes with Anna. Their evenings became filled with shared dreams of what their future could hold. A vision of traveling the world together, exploring new cultures, and experiencing the adventures that lay ahead. Yet, amidst their thriving individual pursuits, they remained devoted to nurturing their relationship. They established a weekly date night, a time to unwind and reconnect. From trying out new restaurants to cozy movie nights at home, each date became a cherished opportunity to celebrate their love and strengthen their bond. One evening, after a particularly challenging week at work for both of them, Anna surprised Brian with a romantic dinner at home. She lit candles, played soft music, and prepared his favorite meal, determined to create an oasis of love amidst their busy lives. As they sat across from each other, candlelight dancing in their eyes, Brian looked at Anna with admiration. "You always know how to lift my spirits." "Thank you for this," he said, his voice warm. "I just wanted to remind you how much I appreciate you." Anna replied, her heart swelling with love. "We're in this together, and I want us to celebrate the little things too." After dinner, they moved to the living room, snuggling on the couch, a cozy blanket wrapped around them. They watched movies, sharing popcorn and laughter, momentarily escaping the pressures of their lives. As the night drew to a close, Anna leaned against Brian, feeling his heartbeat next to hers. "Can you believe how far we've come?" she whispered, a content smile gracing her lips. "I can," Brian replied, his eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight. "You've blossomed as an artist, and I've grown in my career. But more importantly, we've built something beautiful together. I wouldn't trade it for anything." Over time, their conversations turned to thoughts of starting a family. Anna felt a longing deep within her, an instinctive pull toward motherhood. She envisioned a home filled with children's laughter, creativity, and love, a legacy they could create together. One evening, while sipping wine on their balcony, Anna mustered the courage to bring it up. "Brian," she began, her heart racing, "have you thought about what it would be like to have kids?" Brian paused, his gaze thoughtful as he looked out at the stars twinkling in the night sky. "I have. It's definitely something I want in the future. But I also want to make sure we're ready for it, both financially and emotionally." Anna nodded, understanding the weight of the decision. "I feel the same way. I think it would be incredible to start a family, but I want us to be in a place where we can give them the love and attention they deserve." Their conversation flowed naturally, discussing the joys and challenges of parenthood, how they would approach it as a team. They imagined their future children, the values they would instill, and the adventures they would embark on as a family. As the months rolled on, Anna and Brian continued to thrive in their personal and professional lives. They supported each other's dreams and made plans for their future, weaving a beautiful tapestry of love and commitment. Their bond grew deeper with each shared experience, transforming them into a powerful partnership, ready to face the world together. However, They also learned that life had its own way of testing relationships. One day, Anna received news that her father had fallen ill. Concern washed over her as she rushed to the hospital, Brian right by her side. The experience was challenging for both of them, a stark reminder of the unpredictability of life. Anna's family rallied together, showing strength and love in the face of adversity. Brian became a pillar of support for Anna, comforting her and reassuring her that they would navigate this together. He stood by her side through sleepless nights, hospital visits, and the uncertainty that lingered in the air. "Whatever you need, I'm here for you," he would remind her gently, holding her hand in his. In those challenging moments, Anna discovered the true strength of their love. Brian's unwavering presence provided her with the resilience to face her fears. As they spent time in the hospital, Anna cherished the moments they had together, knowing that they were creating memories even in difficult times. Days turned into weeks, and as her father began to recover, Anna felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She realized how precious family was, how love could shine even in the darkest moments. With Brian by her side, she felt empowered to embrace the challenges of life, knowing they were a team. When her father was finally discharged from the hospital, Anna organized a small family gathering to celebrate his recovery. Brian helped her with every detail, ensuring her father felt surrounded by love. As they all gathered in their cozy home, laughter and joy filled the air, a beautiful reminder of the strength of family bonds. In the weeks that followed, Anna and Brian continued to grow together, learning to appreciate life's ups and downs. They made it a priority to spend time with family, cherishing the moments that brought them closer. Each experience deepened their commitment to one another and solidified their belief that they were meant to navigate life together. As summer approached, Anna found herself in a reflective mood. She sat in her studio. As the sun rose on a new day, Anna stood by her window, the gentle warmth of the morning light spilling into the room. It had been several months since her father's recovery, and life had slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Yet, the experience had left a lasting imprint on her heart, a reminder of how fleeting life could be and how important it was to cherish every moment. Anna glanced at the canvases that adorned her studio, each piece a reflection of her journey, a tapestry woven with dreams, emotions, and memories. She felt a sense of pride in how far she had come as an artist, but she also felt the familiar stirrings of ambition, pushing her to explore new horizons. The creative pulse within her urged for something more profound, something that resonated with her evolving identity. One afternoon, while tidying up her studio, Anna came across an unfinished piece, a canvas filled with vibrant colors but devoid of a clear direction. It had been her attempt to capture the essence of love, but she had struggled to convey the depth of her feelings. Staring at it, Anna felt a spark ignite within her. "Maybe this is the moment to dive deeper," she whispered to herself, the idea forming like a butterfly breaking free from its cocoon. Driven by inspiration, she decided to host a solo exhibition. This would be an opportunity to showcase her work and share her journey as an artist with the world. But it wouldn't just be an ordinary exhibition. She wanted it to embody the transformative power of love and resilience, drawing from her experiences with Brian, her family, and her art. Excited, she rushed to Brian's office that evening, her heart racing as she entered. "Brian," she called, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. He looked up from his work, a smile spreading across his face. "What's got you so animated?" "I want to hold a solo exhibition," she announced, her voice brimming with excitement. "I want it to be a celebration of love, resilience, and the beauty of life." Brian's eyes lit up. "That sounds incredible. You've been working so hard. What do you need from me?" "I need your support and ideas. I want this to be something meaningful. I envision the exhibition not just as a showcase of my art, but as a storytelling experience, one that captures the journey of love in all its forms," Anna explained, her passion igniting the room. Brian nodded, intrigued. "Let's brainstorm. We can discuss the theme, how to curate the pieces, and even find a venue that resonates with your vision." In the weeks that followed, Anna and Brian immersed themselves in planning the exhibition. They explored different venues, eventually choosing a charming local gallery that resonated with Anna's aesthetic. A space that felt warm and inviting, perfect for showcasing her work. As the exhibition date approached, Anna dedicated countless hours to completing her pieces, each stroke of the brush infused with her heart and soul. Brian, ever supportive, took on the logistical side of things, handling invitations, managing the event details, and even learning about art curation to ensure that everything flowed seamlessly. Their evenings became a blend of art, laughter, and collaborative brainstorming. They would often stay up late, sipping tea and discussing their hopes for the exhibition, their conversations turning into dreams of what their future might hold. What if this exhibition leads to more opportunities? Brian mused one night, wrapping his arms around Anna as they sat on the couch. I would love that. I want to share my art with more people. But it's also about sharing our story, our journey. That's what I want to capture, Anna replied, her eyes sparkling with determination. Finally, the day of the exhibition arrived, and with it came a mix of excitement and nerves. Anna spent the morning preparing, arranging the artwork, making sure everything was just right. Brian was there every step of the way, offering encouragement and reassuring her whenever she felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. You've poured your heart into this. Just be yourself, and everything will fall into place, he said, holding her hand tightly. As the evening approached, the gallery began to fill with guests. Friends, family, and art enthusiasts all gathered to witness Anna's work. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter and the soft hum of conversation, but Anna's heart raced with anticipation. When the clock struck 6, she took a deep breath, stepping forward to greet her guests. As she walked through the gallery, she felt a mix of pride and vulnerability. Each piece was a chapter of her life, reflecting her love for Brian, the struggle she had faced, and the beauty she had discovered in herself. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here, Anna began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. This exhibition is not just about my art. It's a celebration of love, resilience, and the journey we all embark on. Each piece tells a story, and I invite you to explore these moments with me. As she shared the inspiration behind her work, the room fell into a reverent hush. Anna spoke passionately about her experiences, her hopes, and the lessons she had learned along the way. She emphasized the importance of love in all its forms: romantic love, familial love, and self-love, and how they intertwined to shape her identity as an artist. The crowd responded warmly, their appreciation palpable. Conversations flowed, and soon, guests began to share their own stories, moments of love and resilience that echoed the themes of Anna's work. Brian watched with pride as Anna connected with people, her authenticity resonating with everyone around her. As the night wore on, the exhibition blossomed into a celebration of connection and community. Guests marveled at her pieces, discussing their favorites and how they related to their own lives. Anna felt a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before, realizing that her art was a bridge, connecting hearts and souls through shared experiences. Later in the evening, as the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, Anna and Brian found a quiet moment together. They stepped outside onto the gallery's patio, the soft glow of the city lights illuminating their faces. "I can't believe we did it," Anna exclaimed, her heart swelling with joy. "It turned out better than I could have ever imagined." Brian wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "You were incredible, Anna. Your passion and talent shone through every piece. I'm so proud of you." Tears of gratitude filled Anna's eyes as she leaned into him. "I couldn't have done this without you. Your support means everything to me." In that moment, surrounded by the twinkling lights and the warmth of their love, Anna realized that they were embarking on a new chapter together, one filled with endless possibilities and dreams waiting to be realized. The exhibition had become a defining moment in their lives, a testament to their commitment to each other and their shared vision for the future. As they stood under the starlit sky, Anna knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, hand in hand, heart to heart. With Brian by her side, she felt empowered to embrace change, to pursue her dreams, and to create a life rich with love and meaning. The night ended with laughter and joy, their hearts intertwined in a beautiful dance of hope and promise. Together, they were ready to embrace whatever came next, each moment a brushstroke in the masterpiece they were creating together. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more incredible stories. Share it with your friends to help our channel grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.